Happy Sunday, colleagues. Happy Sunday, friends. Happy Sunday, viewers at home. Once again, umtungwa uyengwa umalingu ndima. Unkumbuzo, unkomoshe uyanibulisa uthi namkelekile on this great platform of Pont De Politique. Diabulela kakhulu for making the time, and thank you very much for those that have continued over the past week to provide us with some beautiful feedback and some reviews about the program, and also those that have continued to be part of Pont De Politique, like those who have those who have subscribed. Our subscription numbers are growing because of you. So thank you very much. It is very much appreciated. So please continue to subscribe on Pont De Politique on YouTube, and please click on the notification there, so that you are able to see what is it that we are dealing with, what is it that we're taking out, what content, what topics are we discussing on a specific day. And yeah, because you guys have been wonderful. You guys have been a great audience. You guys have been a great source of support. So I appreciate every moment that you spend with us on Pont De Politique. It's really appreciated. We are also available on our YouTube, on our Facebook platform. We have also expanded to Twitter. It is also Pont De Politique on Twitter. And lastly, we are also there on Instagram. So please, guys, enjoy our content, share it, tell your friends to tell their friends and their friends that Pont De Politique has got a very educational content regarding the politics, historicity, and analysis of our country. If you have noticed, this is what we do. The culture that we have developed in the platform is that because a month has got about 4 Sundays. So in the 4 Sundays, one Sunday, myself as the host, I will not host anybody. One Sunday of the month, I don't host anybody. It is me alone who is engaging on the channel. And then on the next 3 or on the other 3 channel weeks, we are having some guests. It could be 1, 2, or 3, depending on the topic. So we're also asking that you please send us what would be your interested topics to discuss and the guests that you would like us to talk to and come and engage. So yes, welcome. We are going to be part of another educational topic today. Thank you. I'm glad that I have you guys. I'm glad that I'm always part of a group of people who interact with me. So on Pont De Politique, we are welcoming the comments anytime, questions anytime, and every view is accepted anytime. So as the conversation continues, as I'm making my presentation, we welcome your comments. So feel free to send us your comments about the topic at hand, including the suggestions going forward. Today, you will remember, those who have been following Pont De Politique, you will remember that in November 2021, we had a discussion where we were asking, is the old South Africa the new South Africa? So we wanted to find out from our guests that we had at the time that is there something that one could, when we look at the structural makeup of South Africa as a country, state, or whatever you call it, is the new South Africa actually the old South Africa? So when we got into that conversation, one of our guests on the day made a very important point about whether we like it or not, whether we can be critical about how the state of affairs and how things are in our country. But at the end of the day, it is not the same. And I accept that, and I think that is a very important thing. So in one of my submissions, in one of my arguments, I've made that submission to clearly state that there has been changes in South Africa since 1994. And those changes, they are at various aspects. They are in many ways and in many things. For an example, after George Fivers, which was a European descendant, he was the National Commissioner of the South African Police Service. And there was then a black or an African National Commissioner after him. You also see that there has been some slight transformation in the judiciary, even though the majority is still white male. But there is some work that has been done there. Also, the government of the day is a black organization, even though the ANC merged with the National Party, which was an apartheid government party, but it is merged, so it has become the ANC, the dominant number, the dominant picture that is presented with us. So you find those changes. We queue together in the banks. Those who were the Europeans and non-Europeans, they queue in the same line. Everywhere, we almost do the same thing. We go to the same beaches, even though if you make a noise at certain beaches, some people will bring especially the Europeans and the European descendants, these people that you call white, European descendants in our country, they would call some private security on the African people. But we do go to those things. There's no law that stops us from going there. It's just that those people who seem to think that those things are their property, they would then do some things against us as an African indigenous people. So there are some changes. You look at a number of people who have gone into the universities, gone into the post-schooling environment to acquire degrees, even though majority of our people with those degrees, they are unemployed. So you look at it, you look at the makeup of the South African Parliament, the majority is people of African descent. So there has been so much changes in various ways. However, I do want to believe that there are vexages. There are vexages or ifuthe lobukoloniali in the new South Africa is there, and I don't think it is something that we can run away from. I don't think it is something that we get because of the type of setup that we were at. South Africa as a political territory from 1909, 1910 was created within a colonial paradigm, colonial attitude, colonial era. And since the 1400s, when the first Europeans landed on these shores, so there has been a constant, how do I use, you know, ukunyathelelwa phansi kobu Afrika ngabantu abangondlebe esikhanyelanga, abantu abavela Europe. When they landed for centuries from their first day they landed here, there has been that colonial hegemony influencing how the the polity, how the society must be made up, and so on and so forth. So what I'm trying to do with this discussion today is to try and show that while there are changes, while there are important changes that have taken place, but if we tell colonial, those continuities, that's what I call the continuities of the old South Africa. Now, when I talk about the old South Africa, I want you guys to understand me. I don't talk about the South Africa of 1948 until 1994. I'm taking it back from the first time that there was what is called a political entity called South Africa. So I'm taking it back there. So when I'm talking about the old, I'm talking about that. When I'm talking about the new, I'm talking about 28 April 1994 until today. So when I'm talking about the old South Africa, I'm talking about 27 April 1994 until the 9th of May 1910. That includes the earlier version. But what makes me not include the earlier version in this old and new South Africa is because South Africa was only established in 1910. So South Africa is a new state. It's not that old but as a territory, it's been there. So the European descendants did not bring South Africa. They brought the name South Africa, and they brought the way to set up the polity itself. So in my discussion today, I want to talk about these continuities. I want to show them. I want to reflect them. Why is it important? Because sometimes in the politicians and politics and people in politics, law, people in corporate sector, in people in environments of education and so on and so forth, in all our society, they don't speak frankly about these continuities. And some people accept these continuities as a norm. You know, when something happens to you over and over again, you know, when the people steal money off the state, like the people of the ANC, when they steal money, some people don't get surprised. They feel like we're expecting it. You see, it's part of our lives. It's part of our DNA. Well, that's not supposed to be the case. So it's the same with the issue of the continuities of the old South Africa in the new. So people have begun to accept certain things and say they are how they are because naturally they're supposed to be like that. Now, in this discussion, I want to dispel that understanding by pointing out certain things, pointing out certain facts. You talk about the facts that you go and find them in the annals of history. You look at those facts and you want to understand. And I'm not saying that I'll be able to provide solutions to those continuities. The only thing is that I want you, the viewers, at least to have an understanding, to know, okay, I'm part of this because of this. Not to be part of something and you don't know why, what is it, why is it like that? The other time in the very same platform, we were discussing about the flag. And I was saying, when I was talking about the flag, I was saying some people give loyalty to the flag so much, but the underlying message of the flag, they don't know it. And some, they don't even care because they accept that, no, that is the flag. It's supposed to be like that. It's our flag and so on. It doesn't matter. And there's a symbolism in the flag. There's a symbolism in why certain things happen the way they happen. So you must not think about that things just happen. Things don't just happen. Things don't just fall from the sky and like boom, things just happen. It doesn't work like that. Even how we live as a society, how we live. When you see the majority of the half of the population of South Africa is unemployed, that is not coming from the sky. It doesn't come from the sky. It didn't just fall off like boom. Doesn't happen like that. there's something that created that. It has went to the level with which we are at now. So even those scientists, like I think it was Isaac Newton or Galileo Galilei, I'm not sure, I'm not in that field, but when he saw the apple falling, he wanted to understand why would the apple fall. And it does not just begin by just the apple, it just fell. It doesn't work like that. There are things that create the situation with which we find ourselves in, and we need to look at those things. And part of this platform's objective is to make sure that while there is the superficial analysis, at least let's get a little bit deeper. Let's try and want to understand a little bit deeper what is it that has caused us to be at the level with which we are. Why did we end up becoming a so-called English and Christian country? Were we an English and Christian country before? Why is Mozambique not an English Christian country like us? Why is it a Portuguese country? Why do you have South Africa as an English Christian country majority, and Ghana you have it as an English Christian country, but you have Senegal that is a Muslim and a French speaking country? These are important questions because they will tell you how did we get to where we came. So I'm going to make a presentation, but I'm going to run through my presentation so that I'm able to cover a lot of things. I want to show the old vexages of South Africa in the new South Africa. And I call these continuities. It's important that we understand them as they are continuities. And some people, because they look at these continuities and they look, when they see them, they say, like, that's why South Africa changed. I mean, 1994 changed for all. Because when you look at these continuities, you see the fundamental, what makes the foundation of South Africa as we know it today. They have not changed. Look at the economic structure of South Africa. It is still controlled by the minority Europeans. They are invaders, they are settlers in South Africa, but they control majority. Look at the corporate sector, still the same. So some people, when they look at all of these dynamics, they will be like, nothing changed. But you will remember I said at the beginning, whether we want to agree or not, there has been some changes. But the next question would be, are they structural? Are they sufficient for our change? That is not for me to answer. So you would understand that historically, around 1,000 years prior to the invasion of Cape of Good Hope by the Portuguese in 1448, there were these people who are called the Khoi Africans. Khoi are not something else. The Khoi people are Africans, Gama Africa. They are as Ama Africa as the Nguni Xhosa people. They are Gama Africa as the Vavenda people. They are Gama Africa as Bapedi people, Basotho, the Zulu, Tembu, and so on and so forth. The Khoi are Africans. When we say that the land belongs to the African people, that includes the Khoi people. They don't have a greater claim to the African continent than Basotho, Zulu-speaking Africans, Bapedi, and so on and so forth. So the Khoi Africans are recorded to have resided in the land just around Kiskama River, that is in the Eastern Cape now, stretching, if you know the map of the country, stretching to the Cape Point, which is the sea point in the Western Cape. So they were the first Africans to fight against European invaders. They fought against the Portuguese, who wanted to come in and intrude South Africa. But years later, around 1652, a Dutch East Indian Company led by Jan van Riebeeck, and a group of criminals who were wanted for their crimes in Dutch. They established a refreshment station on their way to Asia, and unfortunately, they were nicely so. I'm saying it's unfortunate. They were allocated a space as a temporary guests by the indigenous Africans in that part of the world. So after that period, these guys they saw that the land is fertile. The land was also beautiful and all of those things. Then they opted to stay and wanted to own the land itself. They decided, Jan van Riebeeck and his gang, they decided they say, we want to own this. They gave each other some title deeds, short people began to fight and did all these funny things that they did. And these things ended up causing a war until until 1795, when they were beaten by the British in another war between the Dutch and the British. Now, to prevent the strategically located harbor falling into the hands of the enemy, the British seized the Cape of Good Hope. And I'm saying they saw the Dutch as their enemy, the Boere. The British, Amangis, they saw the Dutch, the Afrikaners today, as their enemies. And so the Dutch settlers had a clash after they were, because the British were part of a group that was with the Revolutionary France of 1875. So the Dutch, the Afrikaners today, the Boere, were beaten from the land that they stole from the Africans by the British. Now, but through their conversations, I don't know what was taking place. There was a handing back of the land by the British to the Dutch through the treaty called the Treaty of Amiens. But there was a time that they started, again, the British captured the land again. So the Dutch came, wanted to own the land, claim the land, and. The British came, fought with the Dutch, and so there was constantly that. Now, the Dutch and the British are fighting over the stolen property of South Africa. And that was the beginning of antagonism of the English and the Dutch in South Africa. And if you know those dynamics, you must look at the Dutch descendants, like the Boere and the Britons, the descendants, like the English. You must just look at them and how they do things. Majority of Afrikaners, they don't like it high. They were like, because they feel like it's an imposing majority. I'm not saying all of them. I'm saying majority of them, they don't like to put on a tie because they look at that and they locate it in the side of the British, the influence of the British. So in all this conversation, in all these things that are happening, the Africans, the indigenous Africans, were already defined as the lowest, given as lowest status group through those mercantilistic economic structures. So below the Dutch people, below the French, below the German descendants, and so on and so forth. So all these African people were not part of the birthing of South Africa, but there was this constant antagonism around the 19th century between the Dutch, just like I said, the 18th and 19th century, between the Dutch and British, that resulted in the Anglo-Boer War of 1899 until 1902. Now, some people would say this is a South African war. I totally disagree with that, but that is not the discussion. There was no South Africa at the time. There was nothing called South Africa as a polity or a state at the time. It was the fight of the English and the Boere over the territory. But we can talk about that another time. So The perpetrators of the war, the British and the Dutch, they again themselves met at the Vereniging Treaty. At Vereniging, they signed a treaty in May 1902. It's called the negotiation process. So what you saw in the 1990s, it was not the first time. There was a negotiation process around 1902. And the number of people, strangely, the number of people who came in that 1902 discussion, it's 12, I think it's 12 men from the Dutch and 12 men from the British. So they started to discuss that. I think also when the negotiations were starting, they would call the delegates. So the delegates around the 1990s, at first between the National Party, the apartheid regime, and the African National Congress. I think they also were 12-12. So again, you begin to see there is the continuities. So the old way, 12 against the 12 that you see around the 1990s. So that is how they understood now. Now, Boers, who are, I said, they are known as Afrikaners. One of their reasons for the peace talks, they were accusing the Africans, indigenous Africans, for siding with the British. So they felt like they are numberless, or these Kafirs are problematic. So General Botha, after this, and he declared the Kafir question is becoming a daily more serious thing. This resulted in the Anglo-Boer tag team, so the English and the Boer tagging together against the indigenous Africans. And in that treaty, the Afrikaners wanted self-government. This is what also the Africans always wanted. They say, we want self-determination, self-governance, and so on and so forth. But these ones, the Afrikaners said, Tina, we want only two provinces. One Transvaal, which was the South Africans Republic at the time, and the Orange River Colony. This one that you would know, it was called Orange Free State, but now it is called Free State. Again, Orange Free State, the old name, but the name now is Free State. You see the continuity there. So the old and the new, you find that they also wanted to deal with the native question in the Cape until the Afrikaner territory is confirmed. So on the 12th of October 1908, 10 years after the Anglo-Boer War, there was a national convention that took place, that was held in Durban. It was for the Europeans only, the British and the Dutch. They decided that we must stop this war and we must unite to form a government that excluded the indigenous people. Now, in that discussion, there was a native question and the federality or the unitary state of the country. Again, these questions, if you have read and you have looked at the negotiation process, the period of so-called transition, some of the discussions that were taking place, you would find them that it was, should we go for the federal state? Should we go for unitary state? And so on and so forth. So federalism won the day. Afrikaners maintained self-governance from the British. This is when now the Cape colonies became the life of the British, and then and I think in Natal, and then Free State, Orange Free State, Orange River Colony, and Transvaal became the states of the Boer. And then the Africans became pariahs in the land of their birth, so they had no place to go. So they had to go and constantly beg these guys who were European invaders. Now, then in the convention, there was a bill that was drafted. I said that there was a convention in May on the 10th in Durban. There was a bill that was drafted. It endorsed by 4 colonial parliaments and was sent to Britain for assent by the Imperial Parliament. 19 August 1909, the House of Commons, it passed a bill that came to be known as, remember, if you understand how the policy is made or how the law is made, so develop a draft, and the draft bill goes to the next level, and then it goes to the committee. That's why you have this movement of in the land debate. One committee, the other committee does this, and the other one and does that, and then you even forget that there was such a draft bill up until the end. So there was a bill that was passed on the 19th of August, 1909. And this bill was passed by the House of Commons in the United Kingdom. And this bill was known as the South African Act, 1909. So in the Constitution, that bill became the first constitution of South Africa, because that was the birthing of South Africa. That was the first time there is a political entity, class expression called South Africa through the South African Act, 1909. And then that was the first constitution. That's when South Africa was born. Hence, I was saying earlier, South Africa is not an old territory or an old polity. It was just born in 1910. And it was born in 1909, but it was affirmed in 1910. Again, at this period, because the Africans did not have a place to, they were not part of this discussion. They were only kept to go and beg the Queen, but I mean the Crown at the time. So there was no listening to that. So in that constitution, there was what you would call the preamble. Now, this is when now I'm beginning to try and show you these old and the new also. As I'm talking, listen and try and find these answers that I'm trying to show around what are the old and the new. If you pick it up as well, you can make a comment, you can share a like, you can say whatever to show that at least it makes sense to you. Now, the Colonial Constitution Preamble of 1909, which has got the Act, South African Act, it says, I quote, "It is desirable for the welfare and future progress of South Africa that several British colonies should be united under one government in a legislative union under the crown of the Great Britain and Ireland." Now, these are the colonies, 4 of them. Transvaal, Orange River Colony, Natal, and the Cape Colony. It is further claimed, I quote, "Colonies mentioned shall be original provinces of South Africa as per the South African Act. 1, it would be Cape of Good Hope, as I've said. 2, Natal. 3, Transvaal, and Orange Free State. So by 1994, there were only 4 provinces which were established in the Colonial Constitution Preamble. And I also quote again the Constitution Preamble of 1909. It says, I quote, "Pretoria shall be the seat of government, and Cape Town shall be the seat of legislature. Members of parliament will only be white males from 21 years of age," close quote. Now, this is this is the beginning of what you would see in where I want to focus. It says, "Pretoria shall be the seat of government." That was in 1909 in the Colonial Constitution Preamble. 2022, Pretoria is still the seat of government. It also says here, "Cape Town shall be the seat of legislature." In 2022, from the old colonial thought of the imperialists and thieves of the land of the African people, you still have the influence of the continuities of the old in the new. If you think that we are talking nonsense, there's something that always people talk about. Let's go and protest in union building. That is not union building. It's unions building. Which union? The Republic of South Africa. I mean, the Union of South Africa. The union, the unification of the British and the Dutch building. That is the unions. It's the unions building. You must understand it like that. And that is the old is still there. Could there be a way maybe to say, now that we are free in a democratic society and we want to live according to our self-determination as per the understanding that we are free, Was it really necessary to keep on having a unions building? Not the structure. I don't worry about the structure because itself it is an expression of coloniality. But at least to get the name. Is it necessary to keep the name? Do you see how this old, if you can bring King Henry, I think King Henry III, who is the father of Queen Elizabeth, I'm not sure if I'm correct, the current Queen of Britain. If you can wake him up and tell him that, hey, in South Africa there's a unions building, he won't even get lost. If you take him to to Cape Town, he won't even get lost. He knows that, okay, Cape Town is a seat of legislature. He might get lost because the time is, but the place itself, he won't even get lost. He knows, oh, since the 1910s, you are still having the unions building in 2022. Yay! Since the 1910s, you are still having the seat of government as Cape Town and Pretoria and so on and so forth. So look at these and you begin to think about them because they are deep. They speak about something that majority of people don't want to talk about. Let's go deep a little bit. The reason why the Afrikaners they fight tooth and nail with them, the name change Tshwane against Pretoria. They know that if Pretoria dies, they are hold on into that colony as the Transvaal, which today is called Gauteng. Their hold would be gone. Hence, they would rather say the town must be Pretoria again, but the municipality must be Tshwane. So there must be a halfway point. And when you look at it, who is Pretoria? Pretoria is one of the people who has been found to have been the murderers and causing some problems for the African people. So you look at these trends, look at these things and understand them. I'm not saying we can change them. I'm not saying we can find a solution to them, but I'm saying at least to get to know them. Look, I come from the University of Pretoria. I studied there. Look at the colors. Ne? Take the colors of Universiteit van Pretoria and what. Look at the colors. You'll find that there's white, there's that reddish thing, the orange, oranje, blanje, blue. You find those colors. But now, because it's a democracy, it's post 1994. The colors are still there, but there's a nice thing and the nice way that they are putting them. Look at the logo itself. It's also there. You see those Buretrek, what there that you find. Look at the finer details. Don't just pass things. Look at them. Ask questions. Because if you don't ask questions, you're going to be in trouble. You'll end up thinking one way when other people are thinking something different. So be careful, understand, go deep into things. Because there is the center or the foundation of South Africa itself has not entirely changed. You see these vexages, these continuities of the old South Africa in the new. Look at the flag. Look at the flag. Even if they say it's a complex, we are a complex society. Yes, we are. We became complex. When did we become complex? When the European invaders came to our country? No, it's not. We've been complex even before that. Why do we have to bend over backwards to put in the flag the colonial influence? Can't we put in some something that would say, okay, we're going to make sure that the dominant narrative of the flag is going to be that of the Africans because are the majority. So look at these things, be careful and understand them. If you can't change them, but at least be part of knowing, okay, so this thing comes from this and this is the old in the new. So is it really new? I don't know. You make the decision. Now, contrary to popular belief, this is me now, South Africa as a former British colony, it has never denounced nor changed the old name, its name, like other British colonies. You know, there was a Gold Coast, it was a British colony. There was Tanganyika, It was a British colony. There was Rhodesia. It was a British colony. There was Zambia. It was the northern Rhodesia. It was a British colony. And others. There are others. But all those British colonies, they changed their names. They changed them to their names that they wanted. Gold Coast became Ghana. Rhodesia became Zimbabwe. Northern Rhodesia became Zambia. But South Africa is still South Africa. Why? Why? What is it? What is it? Why do we keep the old name in the new? Is it so difficult that we could also change our name? What is it? The essence in the name change might not be helping us in any way. But what I'm saying is, the old is the new. You see, the old South Africa is the name itself. I don't care whether it was a colonial union of South Africa, the Republic from 1961, and what do you call it now? It's still a republic, no? It's from 94. I think it's a republic. Even if you still call it the Republic, but it is still South Africa. Everybody knows it is South Africa. Now, why didn't we change? That is the old and the new. That's where you see the old and the new, the continuities. It continues to find its expression. The colonial order, the apartheid order, it continues to find its expression there. So the colonial inscriptions of government seats, as I had said earlier, seats and legislatures of the 1909 Constitution, they still to this day, and I think even those who live, they think that South Africa was born to have Pretoria as its legislature. So there is also what you find in all of these things. You see. So, and I see there's a Lonobet Dinge is making a comment there. I think I will try and address it as soon as I'm done here. Maybe it's as part of the discussion. Now, Article 45 of the South African Act Constitution of 1909 states that the Assembly will sit for 5 years. It was in 1909 when that decision was made in the Constitution of South Africa, Article 45. We get this from Unkrune Gamkhayi's text. He talks about this. He says the Assembly will sit for 5 years. That was in 1909. In 2022, we still measure the administration with that very same colonial mentality. It was done like that in the Constitution of South African Act 1909. It was done like that by the Boers from 1948 until 1994. In 1994 onwards, we're still doing it like that. Why? You see the continuities, the old in the new. You find them in this process, and we need to identify these things and understand them. The Union of South Africa was established on 10th May. This one I love. I love when I looked at it and I was like, yo. These European invaders are very smart. Look at it. On the 10th of May, 1910, the first Union of South Africa was established. On the 10th of May, 1910. And majority of people, when you talk about the 10th of May, they will remember something else. I will tell you just now. And on the 31st of May, 1961, the Boers, the apartheid government, were confirming their breakaway from the Commonwealth, and they became the Republic. They themselves, as much, they were going away from the tradition of the coloniality, but because they are they are the other side of the same coin, imperialist coin, they could not get out of the May tradition. So they kept it around the May tradition, like their predecessors, who are the European invaders, but from the British background. And also in Mandela's New South Africa, do you know that the inauguration of Mandela's New South Africa, when was it? 10th of May, 1994. Can you see? And this is not a mistake. I'm telling you, it was not just, it didn't just come from the sky. No, it was not. So even the current president of the country, Cyril Ramaphosa, was also inaugurated in May 2019. So you see this so that you don't get away from this tradition of coloniality and apartheidness and so on and so forth. So look at these things and understand them. Uthini ulonwabo dingi there. Uthi, the naming of these towns and buildings is rather a level of resistance to a total African emancipation. Hence this much complacency by the Afrikaner descendants. Yes, you are correct. You're correct. And thank you for that contribution, Dinge. They will resist because it is easy for them to resist because they are able to. They will resist because firstly, they've got the material ability to resist, but also the foundation with which they are resisting from, it's their home ground. It's like when people want to go and challenge something, the European invaders will come and say, no, you can't do it. On the basis of what? Here's the constitution. It says 1, 2, 3. So they will resist because they've got every power. They are emboldened by that environment. And this is the continuities of foolishness. For instance, there were people who were saying, there was a discussion about the name change of Nelson Mandela Bay and what Bai, and so on and so forth. And people are saying, no, for commercial reason, the name Nelson Mandela Bay works better. Nelson Mandela was never named Nelson Mandela by his parents. He's Kgolihlahla Mandela. If you want to name something with him, why don't you say Kgolihlahla Mandela Bay? What is the problem? Why do you want to give it a colonial name? Because Nelson is a colonial name. It was not given by his parents. And what does it say? What does it say? What does it talk to? But Kgolihlahla, you can understand that. Hey, those people who know him, they know. There's a new town. There's a new name that has been given here to in the Eastern Cape. This town is it used to be called Jamestown. Jamestown, yes, I think Jamestown. You know what is called now? It is called James Galata. What nonsense is that? Are you taking us for granted? Who? Jamestown and James Galata. It is still Jamestown, but you are being it's like we are made fools here. So you see the old in the new. Even when you look at the capital cities of these 9 provinces, all of them, they are still the old ones. If you don't engage, for instance, Pietermaritzburg, it was a colonial capital town. It was an apartheid capital town. It is still a capital town to this day. Why? What is the reason? We must rather call it Umgungundlovke. Let it be, so that if we want to move away, and these ways of knowing will influence us to begin to think differently about them. There's a school, 2 of them, by the way. One is in Pretoria in an area called Ritondale. The other one is in Iseqonce, in the area, in the town. The one that is in Eqonce was called during the apartheid up until I think around 2000. It was called Kafrarian High School. It was Kafrarian High School, KHS. Now it is called Kingsridge High School. In the Afrikaner period, it was KHS, Kafrarian High School. Now it is the Free Democratic Society. It is still KHS, but Kingsridge. What is it? What are you saying? You see this old in the new, and the point is, you look even at the one that is in Ritondale. It was in the news about 2 years ago. That school was called John Foster High School, I think. John Foster High School. Now, do you know what it's called? It's called Ritondale Senior Secondary School. What is it? What is it that we are talking about? What is it that we are doing? Because Ritondale dispossessed that land from the Ndebele people around the 1800s and established a suburb that is called Ritondale. So if the MEC of Gauteng, who was running up and down with the name change, we are changing, we are going to destroy everything that is got apartheid vestiges. Gandhi, he's taking us away from the apartheid that is now the Dutch hegemony. He's taking us to the English hegemony, the British, because that's what they have become. Even the MEC in the Eastern Cape, when they were moving with the acceptance of Kingsridge entirely is British. So you change from one colonial side to the other, but you just choose between the British and the Afrikaners. I mean, yes, between the British and the Dutch. There's an airport change, the name change in Isemont. Has the town Monty been changed to Gomp? I don't know, but then we call it East London. There's an airport change, name change there. The name is called King Palo. That sounds so colonial. That sounds so European, King Palo. What is King Palo? If you wanted to change the name to Ukumkanu Palo, why didn't you just say Ukumkanu Palo Airport? What is your problem? Why do you really have to include the European name there and even the way it sounds like King Palo? It would have sounded better if you call it Ukumkani Upalo or Ikumkani Upalo Airport. There's nothing wrong with that. And don't be mistaken to think that King Palo and Ukumkani Upalo Airport means the same thing. No, it doesn't. The essence is not the same. Even though in your mind you can accept it to be like that. So if you look at all these continuities that you're finding in the new South Africa, they've got the vestiges of the old. And the old for me includes the imperialist and the apartheid period. And this is what is happening with the current government. This is what is happening with the current ruling class, is that there's a leniency towards the side of the British. And I think the British have used, I think that's one of the discussions that I must engage in. I think the British have used the anti-apartheid liberation struggle as a way of getting back at the Dutch or the Afrikaners for going away from the Commonwealth and also taking over their country from the British. So you need to look at all of these things and how they operate, and you will see that there is an element. I'm only pointing out to some parts that will make my point come across, but there are many things. The economic structure is still controlled by the Europeans. The education curricula is still controlled by the Europeans. The type of clothing that we wear, the type of food, the decisions that are being made, there will always be that limitation of the limitation of that coloniality, that colonial control. And I've never seen, even in the South African Constitution, maybe some of my learned friends must help me here, where there is a declaration that the South Africa of post-1996, as per the Constitution, broke away. It said it is cancelling all the powers of the 1909 Constitution or of the 1961 Constitution or of the 1983 Constitution. Maybe there should be that understanding. So in international law, according to that old Constitution of 1909, South Africa was never a state. It has always been a colony. I quote that part in that Constitution. It says, the Union shall have full power and authority within the limits of the colonies, close quote. So within that, it can have full power and control but it must always be within the limits of the colony. So it must always understand itself. It's a colony of Britain, you would see how the decisions are made. You always suspect, yay, lama Britannia asperte lama Britannia. You see the presidents of this country, whenever there's a new president, hey, baya fondini bayo kubuda pa kulama Britannia, uba bayanga kumkanikazi lo lama Queen Elizabeth, baqubuda pa. So you see these trends, maybe because there was not that cut of, say, there's no more, there's nothing. But I guess there was no way that there could be the case, because South Africa as a colonial entity has become what it has become. Now, Article 6 of the same Constitution of 1909 provides that, I quote, the colonies mentioned in Section 4 shall become original provinces. So all of them, Natal, Transvaal, Free State, Cape Colony, which you'd find the Cape Province, all the Capes, they are not states. They have always been seen as colonies. And I don't see anywhere where there was a cancellation of those aspects, therefore implying that there is no national sovereignty created by this law. So South Africa has never been a national sovereign country or a sovereign state according to that Act of 1909. But I'm saying, please, lawyers, help me out on this one. I might be wrong. So let's talk about it. Let's find something there. So these dynamics that I'm raising here, they are the foundation for me to say that there are the old vestiges in the new South Africa. So therefore, it could be good to say that the old is in the new, and therefore the new is the old. If the old is in the new, then it means the new is in the old. Then the old is the new. I see also Udinge has came back and he makes some contributions here, and he says settlers on their arrival disturbed the peaceful micro communities that had vibrant multicultural interactions. Even to this day, this remains a backbone of the Dutch rule and a harsh reflection of colonialism. Yes, the second part, I totally agree with you. But I don't think the arrival of the settlers, we could claim that the Africans were as peaceful in their development as a nation building, because we know that there were different clashes between African people in the fight, in the quest for imperial lands as well. You look at the Xhosa people, when they clashed with the European descent, the Dutch European descent, they were expanding to the side that we know today as the Western Cape. So they were expanding there, taking over some of the land from the Khoi people. So there was no peaceful entirely, but people would live together. And when they were expanding, the Xhosa people expanding to that side, they met with these ones who have already taken over the land from the Cape of Good Hope, coming into the side of Makana, Makanda, and Qobo, and so on and so forth. So surely there was, it was not as peaceful as we would like it to be, but people lived within those micro communities, agreed, and they understood each other. Where we would say, this is your territory, and that is, you can graze here, we live here, we can intermarry, and so on and so forth. That was a great thing that happened. But what Dinge you are raising about the attitude, the attitude of the Dutch, that is the Afrikaners. We must not, don't be confused, guys, about these names that we are using. The Boere, the people who are Boere, they call themselves Boere or Afrikaners. They are descendants of Dutch. That's why we call them European settlers, same as the descendants of British, the English, they are Britons, even the Italians and others, Eastern Europe, Russians, and so on, they all are European settlers. But to try and have a black and white explanation, when we talk about the Boere, which is the Dutch, we talk about the British, which are the English, but they are all regarded as as white to this day, but you must understand them. So even to this day, this remains a backbone of the Dutch rule and a harsh reflection of colonialism. And I love that, because for him, some people want to make it as if the Dutch were not part, or the Boere or the Afrikaners wanted self-determination. They also wanted to live like anybody else. They were in a colonial expansion themselves, in a colonial project. So they still do that even to this day. They will disturb each and everything that relates to the to how the African people are living. And Dinga comes back again. And thank you for this interaction. But your interaction, man, it comes a little bit late when we are almost at the end of our discussion. But I love it. Maybe one of these days, you must send us your details, and we can invite you in the discussion of some of the interesting things. Udinge says, again, history records that the founding people, as the San, the Khoi, and the Kalanga people, and correctly so, they had their kingdoms governed by their clans instead of a state authority. That one cannot be overemphasized. That whether we accept, I love the usage of governed and the state authority in the same sentence. It's important that to understand, it does not mean that people can only be governed through a state formation as we understood the state formation of the political science as developed by Westphalia. In the political science, there's a state formation which was developed in Westphalia, and where they say there's a need for a governance, state governed, and so on and so forth. People govern themselves in different ways. Africans have always governed themselves in various ways. So therefore, when we think about how we can govern ourselves as a society, when we think about how we can govern ourselves as a people, it does not necessarily mean that the only way of governing ourselves is depending on the interpretation or on the paradigms that come from European settlers, European invaders, and everybody else. So we can govern, Africans can govern themselves without anybody else, but settlers came and interacted with us and caused a problem at one way or the other, but also influenced some elements of what you would call development around the issue of what we call South Africa. So in the main, what I wanted to put across is that I don't know what are the answers, how to solve this problem. Some people they always claim, because I want to put this very quick so that I close. Some people say, so igama le-country mali change. Are changing lebitso la South Africa to what? No, I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is people must decide what is the name. There was no decision for people to decide on the name. People, I'm talking people. Don't tell me about a group of people who have become thugs, who decided they said they decided on behalf of. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people must decide if they want to call their country Masonja, or they want to call their country Mpokoko, or they want to call their country Galanga, or they want to call it whatever. They must call, even if they want to call it South Africa, they can. But there must be a time of people making that contribution and say, this name, we want this name. And it's easy to do that. Let them do a referendum. Like the way they want to make, they always make us. So here is the census. You see, they even have the ability to count us, all of us, if they do count us. They must do that with a memorandum as well, to make sure that people accept or not accept. And by doing that, it would be easy. So in the entirety of my presentation today, what I wanted to show, using very few examples, and I'm using them very deliberately, so that when you come back and engage, us and say, but not here, but not here, there. And lastly, you must also understand my point that I'm doing it subtly to say that the fight is not only about apartheid, as majority of people want us to believe. The fight is about the European invaders who brought imperialism, colonialism, and apartheid, including now neocolonialism. One of my bones that I have, I gripe a bone with Minister of MEC of Education in Gauteng, Panyaza Lissoth. He runs up and down. He's so active about things, but yay, Panyaza is reactionary to the core. Because as an example that I was talking about, if you say you want to destroy anything that is apartheid, you're destroying it to what? So you are reversing everything that is apartheid orientated, but you are reversing it to what? To return date. So from apartheid to return date. So from apartheid to colonialism. For you, it's nice when it is colonialism, when it's coloniality, it's not apartheid. Hence, I was making that submission to say, maybe the anti-apartheid liberation struggle, or let me say, the anti-apartheid movement could have been captured by the British at some point. Hence, today, South Africa is so much aligned to the Britons rather than to the Hollandese, the Dutch, and the Dutch invaders. But they just keep each other because they are all Europeans. They're children of the same territory. So much of my my work that I consulted to make this presentation possible was the history of South African Constitution 1910 until 1996. It was retrieved from South African History Online. And also another text that I consulted was written by Edward Nkrune, SEK. SEK, it was written in 1909. It says South African Act. It was retrieved from Media Law. And then another one was The Decolonization in Africa, the second edition. It's a book by Hargreaves. Another one is Leicester, Imperial Networks, Creating Identities in the 19th Century. Another book that I consulted is Motsoku Pegu, The Land Question in South Africa. It was his paper that he was presenting on the Thabo Mbeki African Leadership Foundation in Pretoria. It was in 2018. And also Zalta, that I consulted, the book written in 2006 called Colonialism. So some of these things that when we talk about them, we want to say, make sure, just make sure what is to be done. Maybe some people would ask me, so what can happen? I don't know what can happen. Think about it yourself. If you think there's something that can happen, you can happen it. Make it. Let's find a way. But if we are living in this society, let there be no two way about it. People must understand that there are the old vestiges of the new. I mean, there are the old continuities in the new South Africa. You will see in the next president who is going to be inaugurated in the next 5 years, which is in colonial thinking. The next president is going to be inaugurated in May. The culture itself of coloniality will remain up until you guys begin to say, stop it. We don't want it anymore. I hope you enjoyed my submission once again today. I enjoyed myself and I love what I'm doing with you guys. And I hope that I'm doing it to the best of my ability. And I know sometimes I might be missing some of the important points. And when you discuss them with me, and when you make the comments, when you give me your reviews, it makes it easy. But trust me, I know that every Sunday, 6 o'clock, without any fail, guest or no guest, I'll be with you guys and engaging and providing and discussing and providing an analysis of something that I feel it is an important thing. We really, really, really appreciate your presence. Those that are watching with us on YouTube, thank you very much. Those that are watching on Twitter, please join us on Twitter and share our comments and share our discussions. Dinge, thank you very much, Buddha. It's appreciated. Tell your friends and your friends that at 6 every Sunday, Pont De Politique is doing no superficial analysis. Honesty is part of this discussion. We talk to very important questions, and we love having you as part of the conversation. Umtungwa, umalinge, uyengwayo, undima unkumbuzo unkomoshe, thando lwethu kaDlanga, uyibulela kakhulu ilali, uthi kuni nonke, indawo